On this week's Vaticano, delegates from 90 nations converge on Rome to prepare for the next World Youth Day in Krakow, Poland. Church and civil authorities work hand in hand to combat human trafficking, and the Church develops its online presence to unite Catholics and non-Catholics around the globe. We go to the Vatican museums, where they've got so many people visiting that they have to take measures to protect the artwork against them. We go inside Rome's Holy Cross University and their television studio, where future spokesmen and women for Catholic dioceses are being trained. All this, plus a look at two shrouds that show Christ's face, that of Turin and that of Manopello. Coming up. Just outside Rome, in the silence of this retreat center, delegates from 90 nations gathered last week to prepare for the explosion of sound, energy, and faith that is World Youth Day. It's Krakow, Poland's turn to host the event that leaves a lasting mark on the hundreds of thousands of young people who attend.
We are beginning to see the larger impact of this event in Catholic life in the United States. Men and women like me who experienced World Youth Day as a youth or young adult are now stepping into significant roles of leadership in the Catholic Church in the United States. When we do something really good for 30 consecutive years, even more good will result, and we are already seeing that emerge. And in particular for the United States, World Youth Day has drawn many people into the field of lay ecclesial ministry, a form of church service where lay people work in our parishes and dioceses. Many go on to serve in youth and young adult ministry, but also other roles, including education in schools, music ministry, social justice, and the diaconate. We have found that World Youth Day plays a major factor in the discernment process of all these roles, and now plays a role in the continued work of the Catholic Church in the U.S.
From Asia to Africa and every other continent, the encounter aimed to review 2013's experience in Rio de Janeiro and bring forward the lessons, the to-dos and not to-dos, and share the joys for the next time around.
After the days, we saw the beauty of this work. We were tired, but we didn't want the work to end.
The first thing that we've seen year after year is vocations. There's a lot of people who feel the call to serve the church at this gathering. Perhaps it's the call of the Holy Father, perhaps it's that sense of community of seeing the larger church, but it definitely gives people strength to move into a life of service, either as a priest, a religious, a lay minister, or simply just an active, engaged Catholic in the world. So I think vocations is one of the big fruits that we see year after year. In other ways, we're seeing fruits of increased ministry to young people. And I hope that, especially with the pontificate of Pope Francis, an increased attention to the unchurched, to the inactive, to the disenfranchised from our faith, that this experience gives them gives, first of all, the active Catholics the skills to be new evangelists, and it gives the young people who maybe are more distant from the church a reason for hope.
That's the objective for every nation with participants in the nearly week-long encounter, paradoxically called World Youth Day. They will come from literally everywhere, places like India and even the ex-USSR.
World Youth Day has transformed many of our young people. It has given a lot of exposure, and our young people have been transformed by this World Youth Day. And Krakow, we are looking forward because World Youth Day was started by Blessed John Paul II, and we love him very much. I think more than 1,000 young people we are mobilizing to go to Poland, Krakow.
The participation in Krakow is important for us, for Catholics in Georgia, because we are the first Christian country in the world. So now it is important to help the young people to find the faith.
See you in Krakow.
À bientôt à Cracovie.
Do zobaczenia w Krakowie w 2016 roku.
Je serai à Krakow.
See you in Krakow.
Social media is changing the face of the Catholic presence around the globe. From the traditional pen, we've moved on to multimedia digital devices to communicate. For this reason, Catholics from north and south, east and west are being drawn into ever greater contact.
I think social media has been a bridge builder for us.
Helen Osman was just one of the hundreds of participants in these meetings at the Pontifical Urbaniana University last week. The focus was on what unites and divides Catholics in the Americas. Social media has driven a change in communications and understanding.
The fact that we're now able to see each other and to be able to hear each other's stories, that we begin to realize that we have much more in common than what we thought what separates us or what we think separates us. It's enabling us to, again, reach people that perhaps have been marginalized in the past or are, as Pope Francis says, were on the periphery, to bring them into the center of the conversation. It also means that we have to be more aware of the fact that these various populations, different groups of people are using social media more and more than perhaps what we thought. And there's perhaps a little bit of reluctance to feel that to take the gospel into this environment that may be a little bit messy, maybe a little bit loud, or there's some voices on the internet that is distinctly unchristian. But I guess I would encourage those who are afraid of that. Pope Benedict spoke several times about the need for missionaries on the digital continent. And again, if we think of ourselves as missionaries in this digital culture, I think we can bring some wisdom and some witness that is greatly needed.
From the conference to the Vatican, the Holy See's online presence is booming. Monsignor Lucio Ruiz, the Argentinian priest in charge of the Internet office, sees the fruits of the Vatican's online presence. Since Pope Francis arrived on the scene a year ago, there's 10 times the traffic on the Vatican's website. It's not only the way he communicates, but also the way people share it.
Su gran tecnología, digamos, en este mundo tecnológico es el mismo.
His great technology in this technological world is himself. It's his smile, his kindness, his hands, his gaze, his actions, because he generates immediately. The social networks, the internet, everything move in a way so much faster than we move to put him on the internet. He is a digital pope, I say. For his manner and his goodness, for example, embracing a sick person, a child, someone he knows, greeting. Immediately, the people take a photo of him with their cell phones and send it off. So it's on the social networks before any other official accounts. He moves perfectly. He speaks the languages of technology. He has a digital language, beyond whether or not he uses an apparatus. He is a digital pope, a technological pope with his person, his smile, and the signs he makes are his technology.
Today, the Catholic Church, starting with the Pope, is communicating its message with all the media at its disposal. Pope Francis is now among the leaders of the fight against human trafficking, the commercial activity of buying and selling human beings.
È un delitto contro l'umanità.
It is a crime against humanity. The fact that we find ourselves here to unite our forces means that we want the strategies and competencies to be accompanied and reinforced by evangelical compassion and proximity to the men and women who are victims of these crimes.
Experts and authorities from church and state met in the Vatican in early April to discuss ways of cooperating to end the scourge. Pope Francis himself met privately with victims of trafficking, women literally prostituted out as slaves. This united fight is what brought London's police commissioner here to Rome.
I think people begin to realize what a big problem it is. First of all, numerically, we're talking about millions of people who are trapped in these awful circumstances. And secondly, the cases are awful in themselves. Each one of them is serious. So this is people who are seriously beaten up. Sometimes they can be murdered. Certainly sexual violence is quite frequent. They're kept under control by use of drugs. And they can't get away. They can't contact their families. They don't feel able to contact the enforcement agencies. So they're trapped. And I think that knowledge has gradually dawned for so many people.
And I think the most poignant, one of the most poignant things that one of the victims said was, she said, "I am now free, but millions are not." And it was her capacity in having made a painful, painful journey, is her capacity to have empathy with those who are still in the darkness of slavery. That touched me very deeply.
The authorities gathered at the Vatican spoke highly of the work of women religious congregations. They've long been aiding such victims on the ground.
To start with the role of religious sisters, they are spread throughout the land, and as Sir Bernard, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, said, there have been cases in London where somebody's been rescued and they wanted to go back to another country, and it was possible simply for the sisters to lift up the phone and talk to a convent of theirs in that other country, where sisters would then drive 400 miles to meet this person and keep them safe. So that these immediate links and immediate networks with religious congregations offer, which nobody else does.
The group's next step against human trafficking is to carry out an evaluation of church and state efforts and improve them.
Stick around. After the break, we'll go to the Vatican museums, where traffic is at an all-time high. Thanks for watching. This is Vaticano. Every day, more than 10,000 people on average stand in this line against the storied Vatican walls. They're here to see the treasures of the Vatican museums.
In the year 2013, last year, more than 5.5 million people entered the Vatican museums. This year, I think we'll reach 6 million. Also because this is a special year. There is the canonization of John the 23rd and John Paul II. We expect the entire Catholic world to come to Rome, and whoever comes to Rome wants to see the Pope's museum. They want to see the Sistine Chapel. So we are confronting a major pressure here at the moment, and this is my problem.
The great amount of traffic is actually a burden for the museums, but also a blessing, considering much of the proceeds of ticket sales support the Pope's activities. The great wealth of art in the museums are the attraction, in particular the highlight, the Sistine Chapel. The museum's directors are actually concerned for its protection. That's why they recently installed a new temperature and pollution control system.
The Sistine Chapel, after the last restoration from 1980 to 94, had always a climate control, control of pollution, and that system is now almost 20 years old, and it needs to be upgraded because of the increase of the visitors. But we're building on the experience. The company is the same company that installed the old system, so we are moving here in a fairly known territory. And there's nothing that needs to concern us too much. There are just so many people that can go into the chapel, and again, there is also a limit when it becomes indecent how people behave in the chapel if there are too many people in the chapel. So there are many things, including the visit to the chapel, that needs reconsideration in any case.
So they're taking care that this and other true jewels of the museums remain for future generations. In Rome, there's a TV studio well hidden just off the beaten path, where 100 priests, religious and lay people are trained for a future on air.
Well, we are here now in the TV studios of Santa Croce, where we have a program called like that, media training program, where we try to give our students the knowledge, the technical knowledge of how a real TV studio works. And they have come to Rome with the idea of working in the future in a communication office for a diocese or for their religious communities if they are religious. But certainly organizing a communication office is not an easy task. You need to get to know a little bit of management, you need to get to know a lot of communication, and certainly you will need to deal with technical procedures of learning to do radio and television. And what we try to do here is precisely to train them in the technical aspects of how you need to work with a camera or you need to work in a studio, and then obviously how to answer questions in an interview, how to express themselves, how to defend the concepts of the Catholic culture. And for that we have that is a 2-year program for media training.
For the church, it's very important to have good communications offers well prepared, not only from the intellectual and humanistic point of view, but also from the practical point of view. In that case, they will be able to help journalists to do good interviews, to do good documentaries, presenting they themselves. They can offer to the journalist nice people, brilliant people. They can explain the values and the virtues hidden perhaps in a lot of priests, a lot of ecclesiastical institutions. If they know more or less the world of the journalists, thanks to these practical lessons here in the university, they will be able to present, to offer, to discover that people and to offer them to the journalists.
I would say that if Jesus would have lived in the 21st century, he would have certainly used television, Twitter, and the internet to communicate himself, because Jesus lived in the real world. He lives in the real world, and his incarnation is real. So as Jesus used, let's say, the common techniques of his era when he was here, and he used parables for speaking, and he used the main ways of communication in his moment, he would have used them today. The Church has been insisting since the Second Vatican Council on the need that we have of working on media, because it's very important that personal apostolate. I should try to convert and help the people that I meet, but certainly that is has always a limitation. I cannot meet everybody, but through media communications, I can face or meet thousands of people that in other circumstances would be impossible, and that's important. No, it's a great mean for spreading the word of God.
The Pontifical University of the Holy Cross is putting special emphasis on professionalism in church communications. They will be hosting a major media conference for the students in their program and participants from the rest of the world in the days following the April 27 canonizations. With the first rays of the sun, pilgrims are gathering in this Roman church. It is not a common daily mass, but one of the Lenten station churches that draws the people here. Every day, a different church is visited, according to an ancient tradition of Rome.
It is a
tradition of ancient times that came about in Rome. Pope Gregory the Great contributed primarily to its spreading. As of the 5th century, the station masses were celebrated during Lent. Every day of Lent, there was the possibility to go to a different church. There is a station church for every day of Lent. Pilgrims mostly walked to the church in procession to celebrate Mass there with their bishop. There were also station churches outside of Lent, but those of Lent are probably the most famous. This tradition served as a sign of unity with the Bishop of Rome.
This tradition was given new life not too long ago.
The tradition then fell dormant. In the Middle Ages, it vanished more and more. Only in the mid-20th century was it revived. Nowadays, it is mostly the Americans who energetically live it. Also, German students from the Germanicum join this tradition and celebrate the station masses in a smaller circle. The masses take place mostly in ancient churches from the 5th century. Obviously, the most famous ones are among them, like St. Peter's Basilica and Santa Maria Maggiore, but there are also a bunch of smaller churches, which you might not be able to see or even hear about otherwise. This gives the opportunity to the students to study up on those churches, which you would normally not see. Other churches were added with the centuries, such as the one we stand in today, the church Santa Maria in Via Lata. It was included in the 17th century and took the place of an ancient church that was demolished.
Die haben dann eben einen Ersatz in der neuen Kirche gefunden.
Stay with us. In a few moments, we'll be back with a look at two shrouds that are perfectly proportionate, one in Turin and the other in Manopello. Welcome back. This is Vaticano. We've heard about the column of the scourging, the crown of thorns, the cross, the nails, and the holy stairs. For our final Passion relic, Father Bernardo Estrada tells us about the Shroud of Turin.
The only witness that we have of the scourging of Christ is the Shroud of Turin, that is not accepted as an official relic yet, but anyway, that continue, putting more and more question to the scientific world. How a testimony or a witness like the Shroud of Turin, could have that. Even, for example, the negative of a photo that couldn't be thought in the 18th century, and if they say that is a medieval forge, we can't understand how could they do it. So, in the Shroud of Turin, there are many people that have studied very well the shroud, and for example, they have discovered 576 points of wounds in the chest, but especially in the back of our Lord. So that means that probably the Lord received 96 scourges, because every scourge was made by 2 bands of leather, and every band had 3 points of lead. So every scourge was about 6 wounds. So that's why in the Shroud of Turin, you can count one by one all the scourging that the Lord received.
Over 100 miles straight east of Rome is this sanctuary, tied forever to the tomb of Christ, the site of a priceless treasure of the Church.
It is the treasures used to be housed in Rome in the Vatican and St. Peter's. They still have a Veronica's column. Veronica's column means it contains Vera Icon, the true icon, the sudarion of the napkin of Jerusalem, to which John is referring to in his Gospel of the Resurrection. It's, I would say, the biggest treasure the Church has among the relics. I mean, we do have the sacraments, but among the relics, it's nothing below the, let's say, the Synod of Turin. It attracted millions of pilgrims to Rome, and now it's been rediscovered by the pilgrimage of Benedict. When he came here, and he started the rediscovery of the treasure here. Now they come today. Buses came from Brazil, loaded with pilgrims from Brazil. Yeah, Americans come in. They come from all over the world now. Yeah. It is the true icon, the polar star of the Christianity, but it is the first page of the Gospel. It is what John, the evangelist, is referring to in the Gospel. He said, when Peter and John, when they came to the grave, and John is not talking about an empty grave, he's talking about cloths. The bigger cloth, a syndone, or otonia in Greek, is a plural form, many cloths. And a part of this is sudarion, which has been laid on the face of the Lord. This is it. It's unbelievable, but this is it. Men did not make it. Somebody else made it. So, but since it shows Jesus, it must be made by God Himself. I mean, it is a masterpiece of art. It's not painted. There's no design. There's no photo. Nobody knows how it came into being, and no theory is going to match it. I mean, they're all ridiculous in comparison to what you can see here, and not only what you can see here. You can see it from everybody sees something else. It contains, I would say, it's a memory card, which delivers its information in the future. It came back now in our time, in the digital era. So, you know, for the evangelization, there's nothing which contradicts the Gospels, but it underscores everything. It says it's true. I'm alive. I mean, people come here and said to me, as if he would talk to me. I asked them, what did they say? And they told me, yeah, he told me, I'm here. But that's the first name God gave Himself in the desert to Moses. He is here. He's talking, and he is so silent, and he keeps. But what I said, nothing contrary to the Gospel, but underscoring everything.